Today I have Professor Howard Schmidt, the President of the ISF, and he was talking about his session on the Hackers Panel, which deals with corporate espionage. Howard, so what is going on here?
Well, it's interesting. You know, the whole world has changed when we start looking at, what used to be accessible to employees, for example, what also was accessible from the outside world. So let's take a moment and look at the employees. It used to be a time in order to get access to sensitive data, you had to be in someone's office, open up a file cabinet, take out things, and be able to do something with it. Now, in many cases, you can do that across the network. Many environments, particularly in the technology world, there's a desire, once an ICT system is put together, to give everyone the maximum access to as much data as possible, which oftentimes is a very, very good environment to work in, but it's also fraught with risk from a security perspective. The other aspect of that is when you start looking at corporate espionage, you'd have to get somebody inside the company to steal this paper document again, where now you start looking at systems where people are scanning for vulnerabilities across companies. People are looking for a way to get in a network by even using such thing as phishing emails, not to get credit card and identity theft information, but get your account credentials so that I can log into your company and start perusing what's out there and be able to do intellectual property theft. A number of years ago, there was a discussion with the former director of counterintelligence of a large country in Europe. And the question was twofold. One, do you spy on other governments? And the answer was no, we absolutely do not. We're partners, we have treaties signed, et cetera. The second question was, though, do you spy on other companies in other countries? And the answer, after a brief hesitation, was, let me explain it to you this way. If it cost me 20 million euros to buy an airplane from another government, but if I can acquire that technology, and in my world I translate that into steal the technology and build it for 5 million euros, isn't that a good thing? So when you start looking at the national pride and the national assets, there's a big motivation there to do things that one wouldn't normally do in that sort of more physical world.
So what do you actually think is happening? Because recently, over the last couple of months, there's so many reports. I think the big thing was about China. Right. And hackers being found in China and whether it is the Chinese or not. And then there was the whole Intel, I think whether they found something with, was it Intel or Cisco chip, one of the chips. Right. And maybe Intel had a potential area that they could use and they could put their own information in and find out about you. So what is going on? What is the reality?
I think the reality is a little bit of everything. When you start looking at, and I'll use the example for China for a moment, we've known for a long time that a number of the systems there are not necessarily secure. You've got a lot of countries around the world that have really, really great technology, but have not done a really good job about securing that technology. So that technology becomes a gateway for hackers anywhere in the world to transit from those systems into other systems. So what happens oftentimes that we look at the last hop. Now, last hop may come from China, the U.S., Russia, into China somewhere. So as a consequence, you really can't tell unless you track all the way back to where the fingers are meeting the keyboard, where that's really coming from. Then even once you do that, it becomes difficult to find out what the motivation is. I mean, we've seen cases, and we've talked about them here in the UK before, where somebody's out there hacking government systems, looking to find out where the UFOs are hidden at, or what the big secret is for Area 51. Is that really their motivation? We don't know, but that's what they tell us. So as a consequence, that's one piece we have to worry about. But it's also the fact that when you start looking at nation states, whether it's sanctioned by the highest levels of government or whether it's some civil servant worker somewhere that says, yeah, I think I can go out there and I can find information on, providing more information for my government, they oftentimes think that's a good thing. So there's a little bit of everything going on, some government stuff that may not be sanctioned by the highest levels of government to the sort of, the hobbyist, if you would, out there looking to do things.
Right, and as a CISO, what should I be thinking, what should I be doing, should I be even worried about it?
Well, yes, you should be worried about it. And once again, and we've discussed this for a long time, it's not so much worrying about what the motivation is or worrying about the threats that are out there. The motivation is, how do we reduce the number of vulnerabilities? So whether it's a clever hobbyist, whether it's a hacker, whether it's an intelligence officer, whether it's a nation state, so we're protected. And that we shouldn't worry about what the motivation is, but just making sure we reduce the number of vulnerabilities so we don't become a victim of whatever the threat may be out there.
Right. Okay, well, do you have anything extra to add to that? I know your time's limited at the moment, so.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we need to look at in the future, and that's as we develop more relationships about the ICT environment globally, I think many of us that have been in this business for a long time recognize that nations' borders means absolutely nothing. Jurisdictions mean nothing. So as a consequence, looking forward is how do we wind up as a global society, make sure we have the treaties and the agreements amongst the various nations, so you and I as citizens, whether we're shoppers online, whether we're running a business online, that we don't wind up being negatively affected by disputes by different nations, as we've seen with Estonia, Georgia, and other places like that. So we need to make sure that we're looking at our governments to make sure that they're making the agreements that's not going to affect the rest of society on the ICT world.
Howard, thank you very much for your time.
Indeed, my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Ben Chai. I'm the editor for securityvibes.com. If you've enjoyed this video or have any other comments to make, please do fill in the comment boxes and let us know what you think. Thank you.